Never. I mean, I'm a special failure. If you want to call it special, I'm a special failure, but I'll never be anything special. I mean, can you imagine a young person that's 16 and 17 years old that is in 4 high schools or 3 high schools by this time, getting kicked out? I was just an utter failure. I'm gonna go nowhere. And so I packed that suitcase up. I remember opening the window of my little room there in the dorm, and there was a town student, which means he had a car, this guy. And I asked him, I said, can you give me a ride into town because I need to get out of here? And he said, sure. So I hopped in the car, and my mom had been waiting because I won't go through all the stuff that was happening, but my mom was waiting for a call because she had been told that I'd been taking some drugs. And so I was supposed to talk to her, and I figured she might be frantic, so I felt the least I could do was that I could call her up. So I got to this payphone, and I called her up, and when I got into the payphone, of course, I reached into my pockets, and I didn't even have a dime to my name. I thought, there you go, Dwight, you are such a mess up. And so, of course, what do you got to do when you're in that payphone? You call collect. So I called collect, and my mom answered the phone, and you know what really hit me was that she was crying. And she said, son, we all make mistakes, and I love you. And then she said this, she said, Dad and I believe that you are special. And that touched my heart. Dad and I believe that you're special. And we all make mistakes, son. I said, but Mom, I mean, this is my 3rd high school. What are the people in the church going to say? Are they going to say, man, what kind of kid are you raising up, Darwin and Joyce? These things go through a young person's mind. And so I said, I'm not coming home. I'm leaving. And my mom would not let me off that phone until I promised her that I would stay in that phone booth. Now it was about a 2.5-hour drive to that payphone. But I went back to the dorm that night. She picked me up the next day. And I made up my mind that I would never let my mom and dad down again. Now that didn't mean I didn't get in some more trouble on the way. But the bottom line is, I wanted to be special. And yet I felt that I couldn't be. And so now I finally graduated down in Florida in a high school, Naples High School in Florida. My dad was, and my uncle was building apartments down there. And so I was building with him. And I thought, you know, I don't know if I want to pound nails the rest of my life. And I'd grown up doing that. And every summer I was working for my dad and trying to save money to buy a bicycle or whatever. And so one day I was also learning how to fly back in the 70s, and of course it was a lot less expensive back then. One of my dreams was to learn how to fly, and I was doing that, but this day it was kind of rainy, and so during my lunch break, I was just walking down the street in Coldwater. Now, you're here in Coldwater. It's not a very big town, and as I was walking down the street, I looked up and just killing some time before I had to go back and work, and there was a sign that said, Army Recruiting Station. Now, I made fun of anybody that ever went into the Army. I thought, you got to be crazy to join the Army. And the Vietnam War was still going on. It was just getting over with. But, I thought, well, it's kind of sprinkling. I'll go in there just to kill time. So I walked in there, and this guy said, oh, what can I help you with? And I said, well, not really anything. I'm just killing some time and thought I would come in here and just see what, the Army's all about. He said, well, let me show you. And so he said, what do you want to do in life? And I said, well, I certainly don't want any more school. I've had enough of that stuff. And he said, you don't want to go do any kind of college? I said, no, I don't want college. I don't want anything. And I said, I've had enough of that stuff. And, of course, I didn't explain to him what had happened in my life. And so he said, okay. He said, what would you like to do? And, of course, I thought I was going to get him because I had no plan of going in the service. He said, if I could give you what you want, and I'm a big dreamer, Christian, what would you like to do? And here's what, a young person, here's what I thought of instantly in my mind. I thought, if I could go to Hawaii, because I'd heard about Hawaii, I'd never been there, and all I could dream about as a young person is I'm going to go on the beach, I'm going to learn how to surf, there'll be a lot of nice, young, pretty women out on that beach, and that would be like heaven to me. So if I could be in Hawaii and drive an Army truck, That'd be an easy job. Then you know what? I joined the Army. He said, really? You're serious? I said, well, yeah, I'm serious. And you know what? Before I got done, he had me signed up to go to Hawaii as a truck driver. I thought my parents would be ecstatic. I'm kind of laughing. They weren't. I know my dad and mom has told me later on, they said, oh boy, here we go again. And I said, but this will be great. I mean, I get to go to Hawaii, I get to go places. You know, of course, they all tell you that you're going to go all kinds of places and learn all kinds of things. So anyways, I signed up, and he said, you know, you've got to take this test. And so in a month, you know, I had to go to Detroit and take a written exam and a physical exam. I was really worried about the written exam. I never did very well at any of my tests in school. And so I was kind of worried about that. There was no way I could brush up on anything. And so about a month later, I jumped on a bus and went up to Detroit and took this test. Well, when I got done, I was sitting in a line of seats and just kind of nervous. And here comes this guy, and he had this uniform on, you know, and he had this black beret on, and I mean, he looked mean, and he said, Hall, and I thought he's talking about me, and so I said yes, and he said, come in here. So I walked in there, and he said, have a seat, and I sat down, and he said, listen, you passed your test, and I thought, whew, boy, that's good, and you passed your physical test, and I figured I'd pass that, and he said, you did so well. But that got my attention because, you know, I never did well in tests. You did so well, he said, that we have just the job for you. But it's voluntary. He said, it's called the Airborne Rangers. It's a special forces group. And he said, it's voluntary. You can get out anytime you want. And he started explaining how rigorous the training would be. He didn't powder coat it, but you know what? All I wanted to do was be special. That's it. Who cares about a surfboard in Hawaii and those tanned women and driving a truck? I want to be an airborne ranger. I want to be special because I'd been such a flub up all my life. And so I was excited. And I thought, man, I can't wait. And so I went back to the Army recruiting station the next day. And he said, well, did you pass? And I said, yeah, I passed with flying colors. And I said, well, we've got one little problem. And he said, well, what's that? And I said, I've changed. It was called your MOS. And I can't remember what that stands for, but military operations something. But it was where what you were going to be doing. And so I said, I've changed my MOS. And he said, well, why would you do that? And I said, well, you'll never guess what I'm going to be in. I said, I'm going to be an airborne ranger. And you should have seen the look on his face. His smile went to a frown. And he said, you have got to be kidding me. I said, no, I'm not. And he said, I want to show you a film right now. So he got me, because back then it was, I don't even think it was a VCR. It was one of those reel-to-reel film deals, and kind of shows my age. And so he did that, and it showed the rigorous training, and it showed him jumping out of airplanes and jump school. And then they said that during battle that an airborne ranger's average lifespan was about 11 minutes. And you know, that's a true film. And of course, when you're 17 years old, young guys, are you not indestructible? Hey, it might happen to them, but I'm going to be the one of the survivors. They're going to kill me. I'll duck those bullets, whatever I've got to do. I will do more push-ups. And so when he got done, he said, so now what do you think? And I said, man, I just can't wait to get in. I am anxious. Boy, I want to go. And that was because I wanted to be special. I wanted to be somebody. And God has called each and every one of you to be somebody. Amen? I want to just maybe share a couple things here on this. It's not really a big PowerPoint, but what makes a ranger special? Now, you can see that one tab. I never got that one ranger tab right there. That was a ranger school that I wanted to go to so bad, but I got out before I got to get that. But I wore the patch. I still have my fatigues and stuff. It says 75th Ranger Regiment. There was two of them. I was in the 2nd 75th stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. And but what makes a ranger special? It says the 75th Ranger Regiment is a flexible, highly trained, and rapidly deployable light infantry force with specialized skills that enable it to be employed against different varieties of conventional and special operations targets.